Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk about the ColourPop No Filter collection. So if that's something you're interested in watching, you're in the right place. We're about to get into it.
I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf.
So, ColourPop Cosmetics. What are they all about? If you've been hiding out somewhere in the far corners of the world, you may not have heard about them yet. However, they seem to be everywhere nowadays. So ColourPop was started with a couple of really simple things in mind. Number one, they wanted to create quote-unquote luxury products at really affordable prices. Number two, they wanted to get things to market at lightning speed because they develop, manufacture, test, distribute all under one roof. So they're really able to kind of crank out products at pretty unprecedented lightning speed. It seems like every time you turn around, ColourPop is coming out with a new palette or a new product, and that's because they are so consolidated, they're able to do that. The debate out there right now is whether or not they've been able to do that and keep up with quality. So, you know, they claim to be a luxury brand, but are their products really luxury, or do they line up more with drugstore? Because their pricing seems to fall on the drugstore end with some things, kind of in the mid to high end on others, depending on the collab or the sponsorship that happens to be going on. But for the most part, they really are very affordable, and they pride themselves on being cruelty-free. They are based in California, and they've recently come out with a new line, and that's the No Filter line. Now, we saw a product launch from this line earlier last year, and that was the No Filter ColourPop Concealer. Now, this quickly became a YouTube favorite. You pretty much saw it just about everywhere. For me, I did kind of test it out and play with it a little bit. Wasn't overly impressed with it, but I did give it another shot since it is part of this entire collection. I thought we'd go ahead and revisit it today. Now, a lot of people ask how ColourPop can manage to keep their costs at bay, and honestly, it is because of the consolidation. Typically, when you launch a line, the first place that you start is in a lab. Well, ColourPop has the lab in their facility. The next place that you go to usually is a manufacturer of some sort, and they are sourcing ingredients, etc. Well, the manufacturing, again, is all under one roof in that one facility. After that, you kind of go into a testing phase where you test the cosmetics, you test the chemicals, you test the composition, you test the wear and tear, and because they are bunny friendly and cruelty free, they tend to test everything in-house at their one plant in that one facility in California. After testing, you typically roll into packaging, and again, they do the packaging. So all of the packaging, again, comes out of that one location. So it's a very direct-to-consumer type of business model. And that's really how they're able to crank things out at lightning speed, and they're able to keep their costs down for the consumer. And because it's typically at least 80% of the business is direct to consumer, they don't really have a lot of those retail woes to worry about, shelf space, etc., because their 80% of their business is direct to consumer. Now, the reason I reserve some of that is because they've recently launched in Ulta, so they are now kind of branching out into other retail facilities, but when they first initially launched the brand, it was a direct to consumer product. Some of their formulas have actually won some awards. Glamour gave their Ultra Matte Lip one of the best Ultra Matte Lips in beauty for the year 2017. I believe it might have been 2018, but they've won a couple of awards on some of their products. So some of their products actually have really good quality. My personal experience with ColourPop is that I do like some of their palettes, but I find that I like some palettes more than others, and some single shadows I like more than palettes. For me, I feel like there's an issue with consistency. I think maybe because all of the manufacturing and everything is done in-house under that one roof, sometimes, for me at least, it seems like consistency can suffer a little bit because of that. But again, that's just my personal opinion. There is quite a hot ColourPop debate out there. Whether you ColourPop or you don't ColourPop, you have to admit their prices are reasonable and they are cranking out products at lightning speed. All right, so let's get into the ColourPop No Filter line, and the line has, at least the products that I purchased today, the ones that we're going to talk about today, are the ColourPop No Filter Foundation, the ColourPop No Filter Concealer, and the ColourPop No Filter Setting Powder. So these are the three products that we're going to talk about today. First, let's start with the foundation. So because everything is under one roof, they were really able to launch this foundation with a bang. They launched with 42 shades right off the jump, which is kind of crazy. It really is very user-friendly, the interface on their website. It allows you to select your undertone, and then it allows you to kind of select your shade range, and it really makes good recommendations based on the information that you input under the select a shade function on their website. So it does make it very user-friendly, and considering that all of this is very e-commerce based and you have to order it online, sometimes it can be a little tricky. However, I walked myself through that particular function on their website and it gave me a recommendation, and I have to admit the recommendation was pretty spot on. So let's take a look at this bottle first, and the first thing that you'll notice is really cute packaging with the little stars on it, and then it says ColourPop No Filter Foundation. I did find it unusual that this didn't come with an actual lid. It came just like you see it with the pump. Now the pump does have a lock and unlock feature, so I guess really how necessary is a lid. It is a glass bottle, and there are only 0.85 fluid ounces in this, or 25 mils, so a little less than the normal foundation, which is usually a full fluid ounce of product, so you do get just a little bit less. However, this foundation retails for $12. That's right, $12. Now, before we get into the actual application process with this particular foundation, one thing to note, it is vegan. It's also classified as a medium, but they say that you are able to kind of customize your coverage and that it is buildable all the way up to full coverage. They do say that it is a matte foundation, however, it is oil-free. So, of course, the first question is, how drying is it? We'll get to that later. Let's go ahead and get into the application here. Now, one thing I will say is that I wanted to kind of go back and forth between a brush and a beauty blender. I started with the beauty blender. I like the beauty blender better, that's for sure, when it comes to application. I will also say this, when you look at the half and half shots that you see on the screen, the coverage for this particular foundation, I would absolutely classify as full coverage. Now, they say it is a very natural matte, and I find that it is. It's not that really drying kind of flat matte that the old matte foundations used to have. It definitely is kind of that new matte that's out on the market, that demi matte, that matte that's doesn't have a lot of shine, and it really controls oils and keeps oils at bay, but it doesn't make you look really flat. I will also tell you too that it doesn't really dry down to like this dry powdery finish. It does dry down, but you can still feel it a little bit. It does feel matte, and it does feel very lightweight, so it doesn't feel like you have a lot of foundation on your face, but it's not overly drying, which was my biggest concern with this particular foundation. Another thing that I can tell you about this foundation is that it wore beautifully throughout the course of the day. It does kind of give you this very smoothed over filter look on your face. It doesn't accentuate any texture. It also doesn't accentuate pores, which you guys know is my biggie. and also doesn't sink into your fine lines and wrinkles. Now, around the 8-9 hour mark, I did start noticing that it started to kind of disappear from mobile places on my face. So these areas here where I smile and laugh a lot, it wasn't that it sunk into my smile lines, but it did disappear from there a little bit. I also noticed it disappearing here, tops of my cheeks, and the tip of the nose. Now that is very standard for me, and that wear test was also done without any kind of setting spray or anything, just to see how the actual foundation performed. I'm sure you could probably crank it up to a good 10-11 hours with a nice setting spray and a very long-lasting primer underneath it. But on its own, you get a good 8 hours out of it before you start to see that wear, which for a $12 foundation, you guys, is really not bad at all. I will say this as well, when I first initially applied it, I thought it might just be a little too light for me, and I was surprised that they called this foundation medium 100, because I thought, ooh, this is a little light for me. But the finished look, when it dries, the finished look is exactly the color that you pick out. So when it first goes on, you may be like, oh, this might be a little light for me. Just give it a minute, let it dry down, and it'll be that perfect shade that you initially picked out. I did notice that. And it's kind of the same story with the concealer. So let's go ahead and talk about the concealer. First, let me just show you the concealer up close. It's a very simple package. It just says ColourPop No Filter Concealer on it. It does have kind of a flat paddle applicator that's incredibly flexible. And, you know, overall, it's just cute concealer packaging. It's very simple. They really kept the packaging costs on this down, and I think that's why they're able to retail this particular concealer for $6, you guys. It's a $6 concealer. Now, they claim that this concealer is going to be very lightweight, very creamy. They also claim that it's going to be full coverage, that it's going to dry down matte, and that it also includes these kind of soft blurring pigments. So you guys know my concern going straight into this with the texture that I have underneath my eyes is, how drying is it? I don't typically like matte formula concealers underneath my eyes. So let's go ahead and get into some application here. Now again, this is actually medium 20 is the color that you're seeing here, and I was kind of taken aback when I first put it on by how light the color looked, but considering that this is actually towards kind of the middle end of the 30 shades that they offer for this concealer. But once it dries down, it's more true to the color that I initially picked out. So I found that that was consistent with the foundation and with the concealer. And as a matte concealer, it really is like the foundation in that when it does set, it's not overly drying and it's not a flat matte. It is like a no shine, and it really does a good job at controlling oil, especially through this zone right here. But it's not such a flat matte that it really just kind of sucks the moisture out from underneath the eyes like the Shape Tape does. This doesn't do that. It is much more lightweight feeling. It is a much creamier consistency. It blends out flawlessly. It really kind of blends itself. It pretty much takes no effort to blend this particular concealer out, and it really meshes well with the foundation as well. And overall, I was really impressed with the concealer. Now, the concealer itself lasted a long time on me. I did set it with the powder that comes with this, and we'll get into that in a moment, but I didn't experience any creasing or cracking throughout my wear test. It really sat very pretty on the face. I even used it to brighten through the center of my face, and it did a great job. I enjoyed the concealer itself, and I really enjoyed the concealer with this particular foundation. Now, when I've tried their concealer in the past, depending on what foundation I'm using, sometimes it doesn't like to play well with others. But with this particular foundation, it blended out seamlessly and beautifully, and I would absolutely use it again. And considering it's $6, you guys, you can't complain. So I'm actually wearing the foundation, the concealer tonight, and as you guys can see, I've had this on for about 6 hours now, and you see what I'm saying about it allows kind of your natural shine to come through, but it's not like overly greasy, so it's keeping controlling my oil production, but it's not allowing me to turn into a grease ball, but it's letting some of that kind of natural shine come through, and I really, really like that about this particular foundation, and I think it wears beautifully. And they also say that it's been tested so that you're not going to see any flashback, which I really like as well. And the concealer is vegan as well. Alright guys, so let's talk about the very last product that I purchased from ColourPop, and that is the No Filter Setting Powder. So I'll give you kind of an up-close look at the packaging here. It is very nice, very pretty looking. It's just this basic setting powder in a basic container with just a plastic top, and you know, the inside just has the typical filter in there, nothing special. You get 8.5 grams of product in here, so typical setting powder formula. They do say that you can get it in translucent, you can get the banana powder, or you can get one that is focused more towards the deeper dark skin tones. I personally chose the banana powder because I like the brightening effect that banana powder gives, and I wanted to use it specifically to set my concealer with, and I also wanted to use it down the middle of the face to brighten, and I kind of have a mixed bag of results when it comes to this powder, and I'll tell you why. Initially, when I set the under eyes with it, and I'll show you the application here, it really does a good job brightening. It looks really good. It sets the concealer very well. I really like the way that it looks. However, as the day progresses and your oils kind of start to come through a little bit, and your this foundation and this concealer do a really good job at controlling oil production throughout your T-zone. The powder, however, when it comes into contact with anything on the face, now again, this is not a completely matte foundation, nor is it a completely matte concealer, so it doesn't suck all the moisture out of your face, so it does allow a little bit of your natural oils to kind of come through, but it doesn't so much that you look greasy or overly oily or like you need to go grab blotting papers. It does a great job at controlling oil, but the little bit of oil that does come through when it does come in contact with this particular powder, it does start to look a little cakey, which I don't like. So my initial inkling was this must have a ton of talc in it. Now, there can be powders out there that include talc. Sometimes a powder that has talc in it as maybe the second or third ingredient, sometimes you won't see big issues when it comes to those particular setting powders. But when you have a setting powder 99.9% of the time that has a lot of talc in it, you'll notice that as the day progresses and your natural oils start to kind of mesh with the powder that you've used on your face, it will start to get this kind of cakey look to it, and that typically is because there is a lot of talc in the product. And surely I looked, and surely I found that talc is the #1 ingredient in this particular setting powder. So for me, the setting powder is going to be a pass. It just wound up being too cakey for me. There are other setting powders out there that I can use that I don't have to deal with that with. It does look very nice. It gives a beautiful smoothing look to the face. The banana powder is fabulous when it comes to brightening, and it really does look great for about 2 hours. And then after that, you just kind of get that cakey look, and it's just not attractive. It's not a cute look. Granted, the setting powder is only $9, but I can think of a lot of setting powders out there that are $9 or less that don't cake up like this one does. So this one is unfortunately not going to be Erika approved. However, these two products absolutely are. I am honestly shocked at ColourPop's ability to put these two products to market with the shade range that they did and have them function as well as they functioned. Especially this foundation. This foundation really honestly impressed me the most. If you were thinking about getting the Dior and you don't have the money for the Dior, the new Dior that just came out, this would be a great alternative for you. You're going to get that same beautiful matte finish. You have that fantastic shade range to choose from, just like the Dior launched with. This isn't going to last you as long, but you can get a solid 8 hours out of this, whereas this will last you on up into like the 15, 16, 17, 18 hour mark. This I think is just a higher quality, but this is fantastic, you guys. For $12, this outbeats by far any drugstore foundation that I've tried at the drugstore. I think I would definitely put this up with those higher end foundations, with the exception of the longevity. It doesn't last as long, but the coverage is as beautiful. The finish is incredibly gorgeous, and I think getting a solid 8 hours out of a $12 foundation is perfect. I think that's great. So this is absolutely Erika approved, and so is the concealer. Unfortunately for me, the powder just isn't. Alright guys, well that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We do have a lot of fun and exciting stuff coming up towards the end of the week this week. We have another giveaway to announce, but I'm not gonna go over it quite yet because I want it to be a surprise, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, make sure that you guys are following me on Instagram at ErikaApproved. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you are new here, and don't forget to press the bell for notifications. And if you appreciate the work I do, there'll be a link in the credits so you can support this channel if you choose. I hope everyone is happy and healthy, and that you guys enjoy the remainder of this week, and I will see you guys in the next video. Mwah.